In a bustling city where every day blends into the next, one moment can change everything. Picture this, a lively diner filled with laughter, the clinking of silverware, and the aroma of home-cooked meals wafting through the air. Amidst the everyday chaos, a young black waiter moves gracefully between tables, balancing plates and smiles, as he attends to a diverse crowd. His warm demeanor and genuine spirit shine through, making him a favorite among regulars. But little does he know that today will be different. Across the room, a woman sits alone at a corner table, her wheelchair positioned just so, giving her a perfect view of the bustling diner. She radiates a quiet strength, despite her circumstances. Though life has thrown her challenges, she approaches each day with resilience and grace. Her laughter may be soft, but it's infectious, drawing the attention of those around her. As she glances at the menu, the waiter approaches, ready to offer assistance. It's a simple interaction, yet there's a connection, a shared understanding that transcends words. As the waiter serves her meal, he notices the small things. The way she smiles at the steam rising from her plate, the way her eyes light up with anticipation. He engages her in conversation, asking about her favorite dishes, and learns that food is not just sustenance for her, it's a source of joy and comfort. In return, she shares stories of her past, her triumphs, and the obstacles she's faced. The waiter listens intently, captivated by her resilience and courage. This unexpected bond forms a moment that neither of them will forget. As the evening unfolds, the diner hums with energy, but their table remains a little island of warmth and laughter. Other patrons watch curiously, sensing something special in the air, a connection blossoming where two lives intersect. The waitress attending to their section can't help but smile, feeling the positivity radiate from their exchange. But soon, the moment takes an unexpected turn. The woman, in a moment of vulnerability, reveals her dreams and ambitions, dreams that she once thought were lost. She speaks of her desire to inspire others, to show them that life can still be beautiful, even with limitations. Her words resonate deeply with the waiter, igniting a spark of inspiration within him. Just when it seems the night couldn't get better, the woman reaches into her bag and pulls out a small, ornate box. With a twinkle in her eye, she opens it to reveal a set of keys. "These," she says, "are for you. I want you to have them." The waiter's heart races as he processes the unexpected gift. What could they possibly unlock? The woman explains that these keys represent more than just a physical object. They symbolize a new opportunity, a chance to pursue dreams he might have set aside. It's a life-changing gesture, one that feels surreal in the moment. He stares at the keys, a mixture of gratitude and confusion washing over him. But before he can voice his thoughts, she hands him a note, carefully folded and filled with handwritten words of encouragement. It's a heartfelt message that urges him to chase his dreams, to never let fear hold him back, and to believe in the possibilities that lie ahead. The air around them shifts, charged with emotion. The diner's energy fades into the background as the waiter reads her words, feeling a surge of hope and determination. This isn't just a random act of kindness, it's a powerful reminder that our paths are intertwined, and that we can uplift each other in profound ways. As the waiter looks up, his eyes meet hers, and in that moment, they both realize that this connection has transformed them. But just as he's about to express his gratitude, the woman's expression changes. She looks away, a shadow crossing her face, and for the first time, he senses the weight of her struggles. Questions swirl in his mind. What challenges has she faced that led her to this diner, this moment? What does it truly mean to her to give away something so precious? Before he can ask, she subtly shifts the conversation, steering it toward her hopes for the future. The cliffhanger hangs heavy in the air, leaving the audience eager to discover more about her story and the impact of this life-changing exchange. With the keys in his hand and the note clutched tightly, the waiter finds himself at a crossroads, torn between his own aspirations and the profound connection they've just forged. The story of their lives, intertwined in unexpected ways, is just beginning. What happens next will unfold in ways neither of them could have imagined. The keys weighed heavily in the waiter's hand, a tangible reminder of the unexpected moment that had just unfolded. He could hardly believe it. A simple act of kindness had turned into something so profound, and yet, beneath the surface, he felt a ripple of uncertainty. As he glanced at the woman, her smile flickered, and he wondered what lay behind her bright eyes. Back in the kitchen, the hustle and bustle continued, but the diner's energy felt different to him now. It was as if he had stepped into a parallel universe, where time slowed, and the weight of possibilities loomed large. He was drawn into thoughts about his own life. The waiter had always dreamed of something greater than his job at the diner. Though he enjoyed serving others and thrived on the connections he made, he often felt stifled, trapped in a cycle of daily routines. The aspirations he once had of pursuing art or writing seemed to fade further into the background with each passing day, replaced by the need to pay bills and survive. The woman, who had become a spark in his otherwise mundane life, was clearly someone who understood struggle. He caught snippets of her conversation as she spoke with warmth about overcoming obstacles, pushing through the darkest times. Every story she shared resonated with him, igniting a flicker of hope that perhaps he, too, could find a way to chase after the dreams he had buried deep inside. But could he? The doubt crept in, a familiar companion that whispered that it might be too late for him. The evening rolled on, and as the last customers filed out, the waitress approached him, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What was that all about?" she asked, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "You were practically glowing with that woman at the corner table." He hesitated, still holding the keys and the note, unsure how to convey the magnitude of the moment. "She just gave me these," he said, lifting the keys slightly. "And this note." The waitress's brows furrowed, and she leaned closer. "What's it say?" He unfolded the note, its paper slightly crumpled from the weight of his fingers. As he read aloud, he felt the familiar mix of vulnerability and pride. The waitress listened intently, her expression shifting from curiosity to awe. "Wow, that's incredible," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "It sounds like she really believes in you. This is a sign, you know. Maybe it's time for you to take a leap." Her words resonated, and yet he felt the knot in his stomach tighten. "But what if I fail? What if I pursue something and it doesn't work out? What if—" The thought spiraled, and he shook his head. "Hey, don't think like that. Look at her. She's faced her own battles, and yet here she is, inspiring you. It's about time you start believing in yourself. What do you really want?" He paused, his mind racing. The truth was that he wanted to explore art, to pour his emotions onto canvas or paper. He wanted to tell stories that mattered, stories that could connect people. But years of self-doubt and financial responsibilities held him back. "I want to create," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The waitress nodded knowingly. "Then go for it. You've got the keys figuratively and literally. Don't let this opportunity pass you by." As she walked away to clean up, he stood there, the weight of the moment settling around him like a heavy cloak. The keys felt both daunting and liberating. They could unlock doors to new opportunities, but what lay behind those doors? Would he be ready to step through, or would he remain stuck, forever wondering what could have been? His mind drifted back to the woman. Who was she? What had she faced in her life? The keys represented hope, but they were also a reminder of the mystery she carried. There was something in her voice, a hint of sadness that lingered just beneath her laughter. He felt compelled to know more about her story, to understand the depth of her experience. Maybe she had encountered setbacks that made her gift him the keys. Did she see something in him that he hadn't yet seen in himself? The diner slowly emptied, leaving him alone in the quiet space. As he began to wipe down tables, his thoughts raced. He needed to find her again, to learn more about her life and why she had chosen him. It was more than curiosity, it felt like a calling. Days passed, each shift blending into the next. He kept the keys and the note in his pocket, a constant reminder of the woman who had stirred something inside him. But he didn't see her again. Each day, he hoped she would return, that their connection would spark anew. He found himself looking out the window more often, scanning the street for her wheelchair, for that radiant smile that had captivated him. One evening, as he stood at the front of the diner, his heart dropped when a commotion broke out outside. He rushed to the door, his heart racing. A crowd had gathered, and in the midst of the chaos, he saw her. The woman was struggling with her wheelchair, trying to navigate through a group of people. He pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding with urgency. "Are you okay?" he called out, concern etched across his face. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "I'm fine, just a little stuck," she replied, her voice steady but tinged with a hint of frustration. With the crowd parting, he reached her side, ready to help. Together, they maneuvered her wheelchair out of the throng of people. As they finally broke free, he felt a rush of relief wash over him. "Thank you," she said, her smile brightening the dim light of the street. "I didn't think I would get through there." "I've been hoping to see you again," he confessed, his voice trembling slightly. "I wanted to know more about you, about the keys and the note." Her expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "Oh, you received it?" He nodded, pulling out the note from his pocket. "It meant a lot to me, but I want to understand why you gave it to me." She paused, as if weighing her words carefully. "Sometimes, we see something in others that we don't see in ourselves. I wanted to inspire you, to chase your dreams, because I've seen so many people give up on theirs, including myself." Curiosity burned within him. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, her gaze drifting off into the distance. "I've faced a lot in my life. There was a time when I was vibrant and full of dreams, but life changed drastically. I became disabled, and everything I wanted seemed out of reach. But I realized that we all have the power to inspire one another, even in our darkest moments." Her honesty struck a chord deep within him. They were standing in the dim light of the street, surrounded by a world that moved too quickly. He felt an intense connection to her story, a shared understanding that came from both their struggles. "Do you ever regret giving me the keys?" he asked, searching her eyes for clarity. "No," she replied, her voice steady. "Because I believe in potential, and I see that in you. It's like a chain reaction. If one person ignites a spark, it can light the way for someone else. I'm just hoping to pass that flame along." As they spoke, he felt a growing urgency to act on the feelings inside him. But as their conversation deepened, he couldn't shake the sense that she was holding back. There was something more, something she wasn't sharing. "What about your dreams? What do you want to do?" he asked gently, hoping to draw her out. Her gaze faltered for a moment, and for the first time, he saw a shadow pass over her expression. "I'm still figuring that out. It's not easy to dream when you're navigating through reality. But I want to help others like me find their voice. I want to make a difference." As her words hung in the air, the realization hit him. They were both on a journey. She was reaching out to him in a moment of vulnerability, sharing her hopes and fears. And in turn, he was being called to rise above his own insecurities and fears. Suddenly, the distant sound of sirens interrupted their conversation. The atmosphere shifted, tension creeping back in. The woman glanced towards the noise, her expression tightening. "I need to go," she said quickly, her eyes darting back to him. "But please, keep the keys close. Don't let them just hang on your keyring. Use them." Before he could respond, she turned her wheelchair and began to navigate back into the crowd. His heart sank as the distance between them widened, the connection they'd forged feeling suddenly fragile. "Wait, can we meet again?" he called out, desperation creeping into his voice. She paused, looking back over her shoulder, her face illuminated by the streetlights. "Yes," she said, her voice strong yet soft. "But I need to gather my thoughts first. I'll come back, and we can talk more." With that, she vanished into the crowd, leaving him standing there, clutching the keys tightly in his hand. The weight of uncertainty pressed on him once more. What if he never saw her again? What if this moment slipped away, like so many others before it? He wanted to scream after her, to hold on to the connection they had started to build. But instead, he felt rooted to the spot, staring into the distance, the mystery of her life, beckoning him like a flame. That night, sleep eluded him. His mind raced with thoughts of the woman and her unfulfilled dreams, and he couldn't help but wonder how their lives would intertwine moving forward. He replayed every moment they had shared, each word echoing in his mind. What was it about her that stirred something so deep within him? And why did he feel like he had to fight for their connection? Days turned into weeks, and though the diner remained a bustling hub of activity, it felt like an echo of what once was. The regular customers came and went, but he often found himself looking out the window, hoping to see her again. The note became a mantra, urging him to reflect on his own dreams and aspirations. The keys, once an enigma, now represented a pathway toward the life he longed for, but had kept at arm's length. Then one rainy evening, as the diner dimmed its lights in preparation for closing, he spotted a familiar figure through the glass. His heart raced as he rushed to the door, opening it just as she approached. The woman looked different, her wheelchair glistened under the streetlights, and there was a determination in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. "Hey," he called out, his voice rising above the rain's patter. "I didn't think you would come back." "I promised, didn't I?" she replied, her smile brightening the dreary night. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation." They found a quiet corner of the diner, away from the dwindling crowd. He could see the rain sliding down the windows, creating a cozy cocoon around them. "What's been on your mind?" he asked, intrigued. "I realized that I've spent so long waiting for the right moment to take action, and that moment might never come if I don't create it myself," she confessed, her voice steady. "I want to organize a community event to help others like me share their stories. A place where we can inspire each other, lift each other up." The excitement in her voice was contagious, and he felt a wave of inspiration wash over him. That sounds amazing. How can I help? She looked at him, her gaze penetrating. I need someone to help with the creative side, someone who can put together the visuals, maybe even share their own story. I think we could create something beautiful together. He felt a thrill race through him. This was the chance. He had been waiting for an opportunity to step into the light, to embrace his own aspirations while helping someone else. But as excitement bubbled within him, doubt crept back in. But what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't deliver? Then we'll figure it out together, she said firmly. I believe in you, and I want you to believe in yourself too. Her unwavering support sparked something within him. This was the moment he needed to take that leap. All right, I'm in, he exclaimed, his voice filled with determination. Let's do this. As they exchanged ideas, plans began to take shape. They discussed the event's logistics, brainstorming themes and ways to reach out to the community. The more they spoke, the more he felt the weight of the keys in his pocket shift from a reminder of his fears to a symbol of newfound purpose. But beneath the excitement, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, a deeper truth that she hadn't yet revealed. Each time he tried to steer the conversation toward her past, she skillfully diverted it back to the event, her smile unwavering. As the weeks rolled on, their connection deepened. They spent late nights discussing ideas, and he felt a bond forming, one that intertwined their stories in unexpected ways. The event took shape, drawing the attention of the community. They secured a venue, and word spread like wildfire. Yet, with every passing day, he felt the unshakable urge to delve into her life, to uncover the pieces she kept hidden. What lay behind her resilience? What scars had shaped her into the woman he had come to admire? He watched her transform as the event drew closer, her passion igniting a fire within him. But he knew there was more beneath the surface, a layer of vulnerability she wasn't ready to share. Then, just days before the event, he received a text from her. The message was brief, but loaded with emotion. Can we meet? I need to share something important with you. His heart raced. What could it be? Had she changed her mind about the event? Was she pulling away? Or was this the moment she would finally open up about her past? They met at their usual spot, the quiet corner of the diner that had become a sanctuary for their conversations. As she arrived, her expression was serious, and he felt an undercurrent of tension between them. What's going on? He asked, his voice filled with concern. She took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I've been holding back, she began, her voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability. And I think it's time I share my truth with you. As she spoke, he felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He had waited for this moment, but what if the truth was too heavy to bear? What if it changed everything between them? I haven't always been in this wheelchair, she confessed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. There was a time when I was just like anyone else, chasing my dreams, living my life. But one day, everything changed in an instant. She paused, and he felt the weight of her words hang in air, charged with unspoken emotions. I was in a terrible accident that left me paralyzed. It felt like my life had ended. I lost my job, my independence, and I struggled to find a reason to keep going. His heart ached for her as he listened. The struggles she had faced were unimaginable. And yet, here she was, inspiring him to pursue his dreams despite it all. But here's the thing, she continued, her voice gaining strength. In the depths of my despair, I discovered something powerful. I realized that my story didn't have to end there. I could use my experience to help others, to uplift those who felt lost. Her determination shone through, and he felt a swell of admiration for her resilience. That's incredible, he said softly. But why didn't you tell me sooner? She shrugged, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. I was scared. I didn't want my past to define me, and I didn't want to burden you with my story. But I realized that sharing my truth is what connects us as human beings. We all have struggles, and by opening up, we can create something beautiful together. His mind raced with admiration for her courage. You're right. We all have our battles, and it's through those connections that we grow. Thank you for trusting me with your story. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her truth settling between them, forging an unbreakable bond. Yet, as they continued to talk, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover. What had she gone through after the accident? How had she managed to find the strength to rise again? Can I ask you something? He ventured, his heart pounding. What was the hardest part of your journey? Her gaze dropped, and he sensed a shadow crossing her face once more. It was the loneliness, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. There were days when I felt completely isolated, like the world had moved on without me. The hardest part was learning to accept help and realizing that I wasn't alone in my struggles. It's still something I grapple with. He nodded, feeling the intensity of her words. I can't imagine what that must have felt like. But you've inspired me to confront my own fears. You've shown me that it's never too late to chase after what we truly want. Her expression brightened, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. That's exactly what I wanted to share. We can inspire each other through our struggles. Your journey can help someone else find their voice too. The conversation flowed effortlessly, intertwining their stories as they spoke about dreams, fears, and the power of community. As they left the diner that night, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their upcoming event would be more than just a gathering. It would be a celebration of resilience, of overcoming obstacles together. Yet, as the days counted down to the event, the suspense continued to build. The connection they shared felt electric, but he sensed an undercurrent of uncertainty. What would happen when the spotlight shifted to them, when their stories were laid bare for all to see? As the day of the event arrived, excitement filled the air. The venue was buzzing with energy, filled with people eager to share their experiences. The woman had poured her heart into organizing the event, and as he looked around at the crowd, he felt a mix of admiration and fear. As the evening progressed, they took turns sharing their stories, and he watched as the crowd connected with each word spoken. He could feel the weight of their experiences binding them together. Yet, just as the moment seemed perfect, he caught sight of the woman, her face tightening as she stepped away from the mic. Suddenly, she was surrounded by familiar faces, some of whom he recognized from their previous conversations. He watched as they spoke animatedly, but the light in her eyes began to dim. A knot formed in his stomach, and he knew something was off. He approached cautiously, trying to catch her eye. "Hey, is everything okay?" he asked gently. She turned to him, her expression shifting. "It's just, some people from my past are here. I wasn't expecting this." The weight of her words sank in. "What do you mean?" "They're from the support group I attended after my accident," she replied, her voice trembling. "They've seen me at my lowest. I thought I had moved on from that part of my life, but seeing them here, it's bringing back memories I'm not sure I'm ready to face." Concern washed over him. "You don't have to go through this alone. I'm here for you. Just remember that we're creating something beautiful tonight, and you're not defined by your past." She managed a small smile, but he could see the turmoil beneath the surface. He wanted to reach out, to pull her back from the edge of her memories, but he knew he couldn't shield her from her past entirely. The night continued, filled with stories of hope and healing, yet he sensed the storm brewing beneath her calm facade. As the final speaker wrapped up their story, the audience erupted in applause, but his focus remained on her. "Would you like to step outside for a moment?" he suggested, hoping to offer her a brief escape. She hesitated, but nodded, and they found a quiet corner outside, the cool night air wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. "Thank you for doing this," she said, her voice softening. "It means a lot to me. I care about you," he replied honestly. "I want to support you in whatever way I can." Tears glistened in her eyes as she took a deep breath. "I've come so far, but I'm scared of what happens next." This event was supposed to be a turning point, but seeing those familiar faces made me question everything again. His heart ached for her. "You're not defined by the people from your past. You're standing here now, inspiring others with your story. That takes incredible strength." She looked at him, vulnerability etched on her face. "But what if they see me as the broken person I used to be? What if I can't be the person I want to be in their eyes?" "You don't have to please anyone but yourself," he said firmly. "The people here tonight see the strength in you. You've already overcome so much. They can't take that away from you." She nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. "You make it sound easy, but it's hard to let go of the past. I've been haunted by my fears for so long." He reached for her hand, feeling the warmth radiating from her skin. "We're all haunted by something, but it's how we choose to face those fears that defines us. You have the power to transform that fear into something beautiful, just like you've done tonight." As they stood together, the silence hung in the air, charged with unspoken emotions. They were two souls standing on the brink of something profound, but shadows from their past loomed large. "I don't want to lose what we've built," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I'm terrified of letting you down." "You won't lose me," he assured her. "We're in this together, no matter what happens. I'm not going anywhere." But deep down, he felt the weight of uncertainty. Would she be able to push past her fears? Or would the shadows of her past continue to haunt her, threatening to unravel the bond they had created? As the event wound down and the crowd began to disperse, he felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. He had seen the strength in her, the resilience that shone through even in the darkest moments. But would she be able to embrace that strength when faced with the demons of her past? With every step they took back inside, he felt the atmosphere shift, the excitement giving way to an undercurrent of anxiety. The event had been a success, but as they shared their thoughts with the remaining attendees, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real work was just beginning. Their conversations flowed seamlessly, but beneath the surface, the tension lingered. He caught glimpses of doubt in her eyes, moments when the light dimmed and the shadows crept back in. They both knew there was more to confront, and he could only hope they would find the strength to face it together. The night ended, but the journey was far from over. He watched as she connected with others, sharing laughter and stories, but he also saw moments of struggle flash across her face, the internal battle waging within her. As they stepped outside, the cool air wrapping around them like a blanket, he took a deep breath, hoping to steady his own racing heart. "You did it," he said, a grin breaking across his face. "You were amazing tonight." Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied softly. "But I still feel lost." He took her hand again, grounding her in the moment. "You're not lost. You're on a journey, just like the rest of us. Embracing your story doesn't mean you have to have all the answers right now. It's okay to take one step at a time." As they walked back to their vehicles, he felt the weight of the moment. Their connection had deepened, but the path ahead was uncertain. The shadows still lingered, and he knew they would have to confront them together. The next few days were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. He watched as she grappled with the aftermath of the event, balancing moments of joy with echoes of doubt. She would often reach out, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "I'm still processing everything," she would say. "I didn't expect it to hit me this hard." "Take your time," he would respond, offering support without pressure. "You don't have to have it all figured out right now." But beneath the calm exterior, he too felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. He wanted to help her, to support her in any way he could, but he also sensed that the shadows of her past were far from vanquished. Then one evening, he received an unexpected phone call. It was her. "Can we meet?" she asked, her voice urgent. "I need to talk." His heart raced as he agreed, anxiety gnawing at his insides. What could be so urgent? As he arrived at their usual spot, he found her sitting alone, her hands clenched in her lap. The tension was palpable, and he felt a knot form in his stomach. "What's going on?" he asked, concern flooding his voice. "I've been thinking a lot about the event, and the people I saw there," she began, her eyes glistening. "It brought up memories I thought I had dealt with, but I don't know how to move forward. I feel stuck." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. It's okay to feel that way. Sometimes confronting our past can feel overwhelming, especially after such a big step. But you've already taken so much courage to share your story. She shook her head, frustration creeping into her voice. "But it doesn't feel like enough. I thought I could handle it, but now I'm questioning everything again. What if I can't do this? What if I can't keep moving forward?" "Then we'll figure it out together," he assured her, leaning closer. "You're not alone in this. I'll be right here, every step of the way." She looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty and hope. "I don't want to drag you into my struggles. I care about you too much for that." "But it's not dragging me down," he replied, his voice steady. "You matter to me, and I want to be here for you. We can lift each other up through this." He watched as the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. "You really mean that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely," he said, a smile breaking through the uncertainty. "You're stronger than you realize, and I believe in you. We'll face the shadows together." As they sat in silence, he felt a renewed sense of determination. He wanted to be the light that guided her through the darkness, the anchor that kept her grounded as she navigated the treacherous waters of her past. But as the days went on, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were approaching a breaking point. The weight of their struggles was heavy, and he sensed that both of them would have to confront the deeper truths that lay beneath the surface. And then, just as the tension reached a boiling point, she called him again. "I want to meet up," she said, her voice filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "There's something I need to share." He felt his heart race as he agreed, anxiety coursing through him. What could she possibly have to say now? As he arrived at their spot, he found her waiting, a mixture of determination and vulnerability etched across her face. I've been thinking about everything, the event, our conversations, my past, she began, her voice steady. And I realized that I can't keep hiding from my truth. I need to confront it head on, no more running. His heart swelled with pride for her. That's incredible. I'm here for you, no matter what that means. I want to go back to the support group, she admitted, her voice shaking. I want to face those people, confront the parts of my past that I've been avoiding. I don't want to let fear dictate my life anymore. Are you sure? He asked gently, knowing how significant this decision was. It won't be easy. I know, she replied, determination shining in her eyes. But I've come too far to back down now. I want to be the person I've been trying to become, and that means facing my fears head on. He nodded, admiration flooding through him. I'm proud of you. You're taking a courageous step. They talked late into the night, exploring the depths of her fears and dreams. As she shared her thoughts, he realized that this was the turning point they had both been waiting for. But the next day brought a twist he hadn't anticipated. He received a text from her that made his stomach drop. I don't know if I can do this, it read. I'm scared. Can we talk? He felt a rush of panic. Had she changed her mind? He quickly called her, trying to keep his voice calm. What's going on? I'm here. I don't know if I can face those people again. What if they see me differently? What if I can't handle it? Her voice trembled with uncertainty. Remember what we talked about. Facing your fears is a part of the journey. It's okay to be scared. But don't let fear stop you from taking this step, he reassured her. She sighed heavily. I want to believe that, but I feel like I'm going to crumble under the pressure. Then let me help you carry that weight, he offered. You don't have to go through this alone. We can figure out a plan together, one step at a time. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke, her voice quieter. You really believe in me, don't you? More than anything, he said sincerely. I've seen your strength, even when you don't see it in yourself. Just take a deep breath and trust yourself. You've already overcome so much. With his words hanging in the air, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. She was still unsure, but perhaps they could navigate this together. As they continued to talk, he could sense the tension easing slightly, the storm within her beginning to settle. I'll think about it, she said finally. But I'm still scared. Scared is okay, he replied. You're allowed to feel that way. Just know that I'm here, and together we can face whatever comes next. As the conversation ended, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. They had navigated another hurdle together, but he knew that the journey was far from over. The shadows still lingered, but perhaps, just perhaps, they were learning to face them side by side. Days turned into weeks, and while she wrestled with her fears, he noticed subtle shifts in her demeanor. She began to find her voice again, speaking more openly about her experiences and emotions. It wasn't always easy, but the more she shared, the more he saw the strength that lay within her. Then one evening, as they strolled through a local park, she stopped and turned to him, her eyes glistening with determination. I'm ready to go back to the support group, she said, her voice steady. I want to face my past. His heart swelled with pride. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. You're taking such a brave step. But I want you to come me, she added, her voice softening. I need your support. His stomach flipped with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Of course. I'll be right there with you, every step of the way. As they continued their walk, he felt a renewed sense of hope. They were stepping into a new chapter together, and although the shadows still loomed, he believed in their ability to confront them. The day of the support group arrived, and as they sat together in the circle, he could see the tension in her body. She glanced around, her breath quickening as familiar faces appeared. But he reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, grounding her in the moment. You've got this, he whispered, his voice low but reassuring. She nodded, taking a deep breath as she began to speak. I'm back, she said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. I've been through a lot, but I want to confront my past and move forward. As she shared her story, he felt a surge of pride. She was reclaiming her narrative, facing the shadows that had haunted her for so long. The group listened intently, offering support and encouragement, and he felt the atmosphere shift, a sense of healing and connection, enveloping them all. After the meeting, as they walked out into the cool night air, she turned to him, her eyes shining. Thank you for being there with me. I couldn't have done it without you. He pulled her into a hug, feeling her warmth and strength radiate through him. You did this, not me. You're the one who found the courage to face your fears. She smiled, a genuine light returning to her eyes. I feel different now. It's like I can finally breathe again." He knew the journey was far from over, but in that moment, he felt a deep sense of hope. They had taken a significant step together, facing the shadows of the past and emerging stronger on the other side. As they walked hand in hand into the night, he felt the weight of their shared experience lifting. They had navigated the storm together, and while the road ahead would still hold challenges, he knew they would face them side by side, unafraid of the shadows that once loomed so large. And in that unbreakable bond, they found the strength to keep moving forward, ready to embrace whatever came next. As they strolled through the park, a renewed sense of hope surrounded them. The weight of her past seemed lighter, and with every step, he felt the distance between them and the shadows of doubt shrink. Yet deep down, a lingering apprehension gnawed at him. Just as they reached the car, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She hesitated before pulling it out, a flicker of concern crossing her face as she read the message. "Who is it?" he asked, trying to gauge her reaction. "It's someone from the support group," she replied, her voice shaky. "They want to meet up. They said it's important." His stomach tightened at the seriousness in her tone. "What do you think it's about?" "I don't know," she admitted, a shadow of anxiety creeping into her voice. "I thought I had processed everything, but this feels different. What if they want to talk about the past? I'm not sure I'm ready for that." "You don't have to meet them if you don't want to," he reassured her, though he couldn't shake the sense that this meeting might hold the key to a deeper understanding of her journey. "No, I think I need to go," she decided, a steely determination flashing in her eyes. "I can't run from my past anymore. I've come too far." He nodded, supporting her choice, even though a part of him wished he could shield her from whatever was waiting for her. "I'll be right here if you need anything. Just let me know." The following day, she texted him a time and location to meet. As he arrived at the cafe where they had agreed to gather, he felt the familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach tighten. The atmosphere inside was cozy, with the scent of freshly brewed coffee hanging in the air, but it felt heavy with unspoken words. He spotted her at a corner table, her hands wrapped tightly around a steaming cup. When their eyes met, he could see the tension in her expression. "Hey," he said softly, sliding into the seat across from her. "How did it go?" "It was intense," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "They wanted to talk about everything, our shared experiences, the challenges we face. But then they brought up someone I didn't expect." His heart raced. "Who?" "One of the women from the group," she said, her eyes widening. "She mentioned that she's been looking for me. Apparently, she knows something about my accident that I never fully understood." "Like what?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. "That it might not have been just an accident," she revealed, her voice trembling. "She thinks there's more to the story, something I've buried deep within my memory." His mind raced with implications. "What do you mean? What could she know?" "I don't know," she confessed, her hands shaking. "But it made me realize I've been living under a false sense of security. If my accident wasn't purely an accident, what does that mean for me? For my healing? For the way I see my life now?" Her words hung in the air, thick with suspense. He could see her grappling with the weight of this new revelation. "Do you think she's telling the truth?" he asked carefully. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "It feels like everything I thought I understood about my life is being turned upside down." The tension between them crackled as he tried to process the magnitude of her revelation. "This could change everything," he murmured. "But it could also be a chance for you to find closure, to truly understand what happened." "I want to know the truth, but what if it's too painful?" she said, her voice breaking. "What if it destroys everything I've worked for?" He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You've come so far, and whatever happens, you won't have to face it alone. We'll uncover the truth together." As they sat there, the cafe buzzed around them, but they were lost in their own world, the weight of the moment pressing down like a storm cloud. Just then, her phone buzzed again, pulling her back into reality. She glanced at the screen, and a look of fear washed over her face. "It's her," she said, her breath hitching. "She wants to meet." "Now?" he asked, his heart racing alongside hers. "Yeah, at a nearby park. She says it's urgent." "Are you sure you want to go?" he asked, concerned. The last thing he wanted was for her to walk into a situation that could unearth painful memories. "I have to," she replied resolutely. "If there's a chance to understand what really happened, I need to take it." He nodded, feeling the adrenaline surge in his veins. They quickly finished their drinks and made their way to the park, the air heavy with anticipation. As they approached, the trees loomed overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to echo the uncertainty swirling within her. "I don't know what to expect," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Just remember, whatever happens, I'm right here," he assured her, feeling the gravity of the moment settle in. They reached a secluded area where a woman stood waiting, her posture tense and her gaze focused. As they approached, the woman turned, her expression a mixture of urgency and apprehension. "I'm glad you came," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk about the accident." "Why are you looking for me?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "I know things you don't," the woman replied, her eyes flickering with a mix of emotions. "Things that could change everything you think you know about that day." He watched as his companion's breath caught in her throat, the weight of the woman's words hanging in the air. "What do you mean?" she pressed, her curiosity piqued despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. "I saw what happened. It wasn't just an accident. There were other people involved," the woman revealed, her voice trembling with urgency. "I've been searching for you because I believe you deserve to know the truth." The revelation hit like a tidal wave, and he could see her struggling to process it all. "What do you mean, other people?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Before the woman could respond, her phone buzzed violently. She glanced down, her eyes widening in panic. "We need to go," she said urgently. "It's not safe to talk here." "What do you mean?" he asked, sensing the rising tension. "Please just trust me," the woman implored, her voice laced with desperation. "I'll explain everything, but we have to move. Now." His heart raced, and he glanced at his companion. He could see the mix of fear and determination in her eyes. "Let's go through everything we know," she suggested, grabbing a notebook and pen from a nearby shelf. "We need to piece together the puzzle. Are you ready?" he asked her, his voice low but steady. With a deep breath, she nodded, her resolve reigniting. They quickly followed the woman as she led them through the park, weaving between trees and pathways, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The air was charged with a sense of urgency, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them. As they turned a corner, the woman suddenly stopped, her expression shifting to one of concern. "They're here," she whispered, her eyes darting around nervously. "Who?" he asked, feeling the tension in the air thicken. "People who don't want the truth to come out," she replied, her voice trembling. "We need to hide." Panic surged through him as they ducked behind a nearby tree, their hearts racing in unison. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, and he glanced at his companion, her eyes wide with fear. "Are you okay?" he whispered, keeping his voice low. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice shaky. "What's happening?" "Just stay close to me," he urged, determination flooding his veins. "We'll get through this together." They remained hidden, the tension palpable, as they waited for the unknown threat to pass. He could hear footsteps approaching, the sound echoing in the stillness. His heart raced as he strained to listen, every instinct telling him to protect her at all costs. Just when it seemed like they were in the clear, a group of figures emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured by the dim light. The air crackled with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. "Where are they?" one of the figures barked, his voice sharp and menacing. "Did they find us?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Stay quiet," he urged, his heart pounding as he strained to hear what was happening. They watched as the figures scanned the area, their expressions darkening with frustration. "We can't let them get away. They know too much," another voice muttered, a threat lingering in the air. His pulse quickened as he realized the gravity of the situation. They weren't just being hunted, they were on the brink of uncovering a dangerous truth that someone wanted to keep buried. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice shaking with fear. "Just stay still," he replied, feeling the weight of their shared fears press down on them. "We'll wait for the right moment." The seconds dragged on like hours, as they remained hidden, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the figures began to disperse, their voices fading into the distance. "Let's move," he said, urging her to follow him as they quietly slipped away from their hiding spot. He led her through the trees, his heart racing with every step. The reality of their situation weighed heavily on him. They were entangled in a web of mystery and danger, with the truth about her past hanging just out of reach. As they emerged from the park and into the safety of the street, he felt a surge of relief. But the questions remained. What had they stumbled into? What truths lay buried in the shadows of her past? And who were the people hunting them? He glanced at her, determination and fear etched across her face. "We need to figure out what's really going on," he said, his voice steady. "We can't let fear dictate our next steps." With a shared look of resolve, They knew they were on the brink of a discovery that would change everything. As they set off into the night, the stakes had never been higher, and the truth seemed tantalizingly close, yet painfully out of reach. They were standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to dive into the unknown together, their bond stronger than the fears that sought to divide them. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the quiet streets as they made their way toward her apartment. Every step felt heavy with unspoken words and unanswered questions, the air thick with anticipation. The urgency of the moment pressed upon them like a weight, driving them forward into the unknown. As they reached her front door, she paused, glancing back at him with a mix of uncertainty and determination. "What if this goes deeper than we think?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if the people searching for us have ties to my past that I never expected?" "I know it's overwhelming," he replied, his heart racing. "But we can't turn back now. We've come too far to let fear dictate our choices. We have to find out the truth." Taking a deep breath, she nodded, steeling herself for what lay ahead. They stepped inside her apartment, the familiar surroundings offering a strange sense of comfort amid the chaos. He could see her processing everything, her mind racing as she moved to her kitchen, where the dim light flickered softly. Sitting at her kitchen table, they began to jot down everything: the accident, the messages from the support group, the mysterious woman's warning. Each detail felt significant, like a thread in a larger tapestry that was slowly revealing itself. What if the woman was right? She pondered aloud. What if my accident was somehow orchestrated? He leaned back in his chair, considering her words. That would mean there are people who want to keep the truth hidden. People who would go to great lengths to ensure you never remember. It's terrifying to think about, but it could explain why you've had so many gaps in your memory. "Do you think I should contact the woman again?" she asked, biting her lip. She seemed to know something crucial. "If you feel comfortable, then yes," he encouraged. "But let's do it carefully. We don't want to put ourselves in harm's way again." After gathering her thoughts, she took out her phone and sent a text to the woman, asking for a safe place to meet. They waited in anxious silence, the clock ticking softly in the background. With each passing moment, the weight of uncertainty loomed larger, but they were both committed to uncovering the truth. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed with a response. "I know a safe place. Meet me at the old diner on 5th Street at noon tomorrow." "We can talk then." "Okay," she said, her brow furrowed. "It's not far from here. I just hope she's not leading us into another trap." "Let's prepare ourselves for any situation," he replied. "We'll stick together, and if something feels off, we can leave. Just remember to trust your instincts." The next day, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, they arrived at the diner. The building had seen better days, with its faded sign and cracked windows, but it still held an air of nostalgia. They stepped inside, the bell above the door jingling as they entered. The diner was quiet, with only a few patrons scattered at the booths, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. "Let's sit in the back," he suggested, leading her to a secluded booth. They settled in, their eyes scanning the room for any sign of the mysterious woman. Just as they began to wonder if she would show, the door creaked open and a figure stepped inside. It was her, the woman they had met in the park. She scanned the diner, her eyes landing on them as she approached their booth. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I don't have much time. Do you have the information we need?" His companion asked, her voice steady, though he could sense her nervousness. "Yes," the woman replied, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "But it's complicated. What I know about your accident runs deeper than I initially thought. There are people who want to keep it hidden, and they'll stop at nothing to ensure that happens." "What do you mean?" she pressed, leaning forward. "Your accident was no accident. There were people involved who had a vested interest in making sure you didn't remember anything," the woman explained, her eyes filled with urgency. "I can't reveal everything here, but I've been piecing together fragments of information. There's a connection to a powerful organization that has been manipulating events for their own gain." His heart raced as he processed her words. What organization? And why would they target her? The woman hesitated, glancing around the diner once more. "They're involved in something much bigger, something that could change everything for a lot of people. You, in particular, are at the center of it because of your potential to expose them." His companion's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "But why me? What do I have that they're afraid of?" "You were meant to be a whistleblower," the woman said, her voice steady. "But they needed to ensure you didn't remember anything about what you saw or who was involved. They thought taking you out of the picture would be enough." But it didn't work, did it? As the pieces began to fall into place, he could see the determination in her eyes. "We need to find out who they are and what they're hiding," she said, her voice resolute. "Exactly," the woman agreed. "But we need to be careful. They're always watching. I can help you, but you have to trust me completely. We need to meet in a more secure location to discuss the next steps." "Where?" she asked, glancing at him for reassurance. "There's an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. I have a friend who can help us secure it," the woman suggested. "Meet me there tonight. I'll bring everything I have, and we'll figure out how to expose them together." As they finished their coffee, they exchanged wary glances, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I have to," she replied, her voice firm. "If this is truly about uncovering the truth and reclaiming my life, I can't back down now." The rest of the day passed in a blur of anticipation and nerves. As night fell, they drove to the warehouse, the streets dark and quiet. The abandoned building loomed ahead, its broken windows and rusted exterior casting an eerie shadow under the moonlight. "Are you ready?" he asked, his heart racing. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "I have to know the truth." They stepped inside, the air thick with dust and uncertainty. The woman was already there, her figure barely illuminated by the sparse light. "Thanks for coming," she said, urgency filling her voice. "I have everything we need to begin." As they gathered around a makeshift table, the woman unfolded a series of documents and photographs. "These are the key players," she said, pointing to various images. "People who were involved in orchestrating your accident." His companion leaned in closer, her eyes scanning the documents. "What do they want?" she asked, her voice shaking. "They want to keep their operations under wraps," the woman replied, her gaze serious. "They're involved in illegal activities, and your accident was a way to ensure you wouldn't speak out." The tension in the room thickened as they reviewed the evidence. It was clear that this was more than just a random accident. It was a calculated move to silence her. "We need to find a way to expose them," she said, her voice firm. As they brainstormed ideas, a sudden noise echoed from the entrance of the warehouse. His heart sank as they turned to see shadows moving in the doorway. "We're not alone," he whispered, his instincts kicking in. The woman's eyes widened. "They've found us. We need to hide." They quickly scrambled behind some crates, their hearts pounding in their chests. The shadows grew closer, voices muffled but unmistakably hostile. "They can't get away," one of the figures said. "We have to silence them before they expose everything." "Are we trapped?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. "No, we'll find a way out," he reassured her, trying to stay calm. "Just stick together." As the figures moved deeper into the warehouse, he gestured for them to find another exit. They crept along the shadows, adrenaline surging as they maneuvered through the maze of crates and old machinery. The tension was palpable, every sound heightened in the silence. They spotted a side door, a glimmer of hope in the dim light. "That way," he whispered, leading her toward the exit. Just as they reached for the doorknob, a loud crash echoed behind them, and the shadows rushed forward. "Go! Now!" he shouted, pushing her through the door just as the figures closed in. They stumbled outside into the night, the cool air a welcome relief from the oppressive tension inside. They raced through the dark, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter behind them. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of his car, breathing heavily as they collapsed into their seats. "What now?" she asked, her voice shaky. "We can't go back to your place," he replied, glancing around to ensure they weren't being followed. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move." They drove in silence for a while, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily on their shoulders. Eventually, he pulled into a quiet parking lot, the shadows of the trees providing some cover. "Let's lay low for a bit," he suggested. "We need to think." As they sat in the car, he could see the determination in her eyes. "I can't just run away," she said, her voice firm. "I need to face this head on. We need to find a way to expose them." "I agree, but we need a solid plan," he replied, running a hand through his hair. "We can't just charge in blindly." She took a deep breath, her mind racing. "What if we gather more evidence? We can use what we have to contact the authorities. If we can show them the connections, they'll have to take action." "That's a smart move," he replied, feeling a surge of hope. "But we need to be careful. They'll be watching, and we can't risk being caught again." As they talked strategy, a sense of purpose began to fill the space between them. This wasn't just about her past anymore. It was about fighting back against a system that sought to silence them. They were in this together, a partnership forged in adversity. "I'll help you gather the information we need," he said, his eyes meeting hers with resolve. "We can take them down together." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. They worked tirelessly, combing through the documents the woman had provided and researching the people involved. Each piece of information they uncovered brought them closer to the truth. But they also had to be cautious, knowing that the organization was still lurking in the shadows. They set up a system for communicating, using burner phones and encrypted messages to avoid detection. As they dug deeper, they discovered links to local officials and business leaders, a web of corruption that ran far deeper than they had imagined. It was overwhelming, but they knew they were on the right path. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they felt ready to take their findings to the authorities. With a mixture of hope and fear, they set up a meeting with a detective known for tackling corruption. The day of the meeting arrived, and they arrived at the police station with a mix of nerves and determination. "This is it," he said, giving her a reassuring smile as they entered the office. The detective listened intently as they laid out their evidence, piecing together the connections that link the organization to her accident. They could see the wheels turning in the detective's mind, a glimmer of interest sparking in his eyes. "This is serious," the detective said, his tone shifting. "If what you're saying is true, we'll need to act fast. They won't take kindly to being exposed." He and his companion exchanged worried glances, the reality of their situation settling in. "What should we do?" she asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "Stay low for now," the detective advised. "We'll begin an investigation, but you two need to be cautious. Don't draw any attention to yourselves." They nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. With their plan in motion, they returned to the safety of their temporary hideout, their hearts racing with anticipation. Days turned into weeks, and they remained vigilant, waiting for news from the detective. They kept their heads down, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while the investigation unfolded. Finally, one evening, they received a call that changed everything. The detective had uncovered enough evidence to launch a full-scale operation against the organization. "We need you to come in," he said, urgency in his voice. "Things are about to get intense." As they made their way to the police station, a mix of anxiety and hope washed over them. They were finally taking a stand against the darkness that had haunted her for so long. The operation was swift and decisive. With a coordinated effort, the police raided the organization's headquarters, arresting several key figures and uncovering a trove of evidence that would solidify their case. As the news spread, the community rallied around them, demanding accountability and transparency. They had ignited a fire that could no longer be ignored, a movement against the corruption that had festered for too long. In the aftermath, as the dust began to settle, he and his companion found themselves reflecting on the journey they had taken together. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged stronger, their bond forged in the crucible of adversity. "I can't believe we did it," she said, a mixture of disbelief and relief in her voice. "I never imagined I'd be standing here, free from the shadows of my past." He smiled, a warmth spreading in his chest. "You found your strength. You fought for the truth, and you didn't let fear hold you back." As they looked ahead to the future, they knew their lives had changed irrevocably. They had not only uncovered the truth about her past, but also ignited a passion for justice that would guide them moving forward. In the months that followed, they continued to advocate for those who had been silenced, using their story to inspire others. Together, they built a community focused on healing and empowerment, proving that even in the darkest of times, hope could shine through. Their journey had taught them invaluable lessons about resilience, courage, and the power of human connection. They had faced danger together, and in doing so, had discovered a profound truth that standing together, united by purpose, they could overcome anything. As they embraced the new chapters of their lives, they understood that their story was far from over. It was merely the beginning of a journey filled with promise and possibility, driven by the belief that change was possible and that their voices mattered. And as they continued to navigate the challenges ahead, they carried with them the knowledge that they were not alone. They had each other, and together, they were ready to face whatever came next.